Good evening, all.
Hey, good evening, Rameshwar.
Hello.
Good morning, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, hey, Bayan, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Hey, Mariola, how are you?
Hi. Fine, thanks, fine.
Excellent. Looks like we are. Let's wait a couple of more minutes for everyone to get in. Okay, meanwhile, I'll start sharing my screen, and if there is anything specific that anyone wants to add to the agenda item, please call it out. Yes, yes. Okay. Anyone wants to add anything to the agenda? Maybe we can get a quick update from the service mesh. Yes.
I send the Slack channel. Manuel she like to present the new problem statement and requirement for identity access management today. So
Okay. Interesting.
second round. This is second round, right? So
Right. Okay. So I guess we have a quorum. Let's quickly go through the meeting notes and the task list, if anything, from the previous secrets management user story document review. I'm not sure if there was any updates, Prashant. Were there any updates based on the comments? I remember there were major updates, right?
Yeah, so I made the document like more formal, like
Mhm.
made the requirements into a checklist and all that. So we can have a re-review for that.
Okay. Okay. So ready for a re-review. Okay. Let me just mark it down as an action item. I think some of these things, right? It would be good to have some of offline discussion because offline discussion in the sense outside of the SIG security meeting. Uh, uh, because if you have to converge on something very fast, uh, we need to have focused discussions, and that might not be possible to be done in 15 minutes time that we are having here. So I know that some of you folks are already doing some sort of discussions outside of this meeting. So keep it up. Uh, please let us know if you want some sort of coordination to be managed. I see Subhash, your hand raised. Anything in the context? Subhash? Can't hear you. Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, actually, last time we were reviewing package validation user story, but there
Yeah.
was time constraint, right? So I was not able to clarify a few of the queries that was raised from the BIM. So, so I think that we can clarify, and at least I'm not seeing any comments on the user story. So
I think there was a call for review, and there were two reviews. I think from the Slack channel, based on Slack channel, I saw that there was a call for review. Let's give time, some more time to the folks, and then we can see if we can get. Maybe it would be nice to actually keep pushing for the review on the Slack channel itself. Anyways, if anyone from, we will call for a call for review again at the end of
Yeah.
the meeting?
Actually, I requested in the Slack also, to leave the comments, but I did not receive anything.
Okay. Let's see. If you have to explicitly call for a review from this team.
Okay.
Okay. Service mesh requirements review. Byung, I think you had you have already posted some comments.
Yes,
So
I did, and then Shiv responded, and then also and then one comment is Shiv said we're gonna focus on the network function service mesh first, then built-in nephew component. So we need to make some kind of agreement in this group. So is that the right priority or any concern, suggestion? So other than that, I have no particular special comment on the service mesh. That's the only comment I have now.
Got it. I think from both service mesh and secrets management perspective, right? Like the primary thing that keeps popping up in my head is how do we do the identity part, right? Like both of them depend upon identity.
Yes.
That is something that we need to figure out before going to the next. So
because the identity access management, we're gonna map between user manual are gonna to present, but we're gonna map the user and then workload identity together, and then probably we might need a service mesh. The implementation is possible there. So that means it's possible we are tackling the nephew built-in component service mesh. But anyway, so she put the priority on the network function service mesh. So anyway, we need to discuss. Okay, so and when she talking about that, we can talk about it.
Yeah, so basically I put that, I think we'll just discuss that. And there are a couple of other points also you mentioned about personas for
yes.
This one, so that I'll add sequence diagram and I'll put my proposal in after this meeting. And as Rahul mentioned, we can have an offline discussion in Slack, and then we can close on those issues. That should be
sure. Yeah, once she posted another one, I'm gonna go through second, additional reviews, and then we're gonna chat, between Chev and others offline as needed. Okay, that's the plan right now.
Fantastic. Thank you for that update. I think on that note, let's move on to Manuela for the presentation, and then we'll move on to the service. Like let's hear out the thoughts. Manuela, do you have anything to share?
Yes, I think that is public.
Yes, it's public.
Do you see my screen? I'm not able to use. Okay, maybe I'm not able to use. Choose that share. This one share.
Yeah.
Okay, now I push the right. Okay, do you see?
You got it.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. This is the same document that my colleague Brian presented last week, 2 weeks ago. I don't remember. And we modified a little bit it according to the comments that we received. And maybe the initial comment was to clarify the problem statement. And for this, we better split the proposal in what we want to solve, introducing this feature in Nephew, and how it is better to do it. So let's split and put here in the problem statement only the problem. And okay, I follow and I read a little bit, and then you can intervene whenever you want, and we can have a conversation. So the first point is that obviously Nephew controls resources, and the approach is the new configuration as data. And so every resource is a versioned package. And in order to enforce the access control to single pieces of data very little small pieces of data, the traditional airbag is not enough. The traditional airbag based on the API endpoint is not enough. And so we need to, and this is the first problem, we need some more evolved mechanism going into detail of the attribute to filter the access. Okay, and this is the first point. Then the second point is that we're going to have several different 3PP AIM that could coexist. And this is mandatory because in our solution, the customer already will have their own infrastructure for their virtual function. Perhaps this infrastructure will be based on some hyperscale cloud provider as Google, Azure, or Amazon. And this is already there. We have to coexist with it. And then we also need to address some mechanism to provide a single sign-on and accountability for a complex system where different identity and access management coexist. Then, okay, this is the third and the fourth point is pretty obvious. We need to introduce the definition of the human users, the application client, as well as the workload identities, and also their access control. And then, and this is important for me, we have also a traceability and accountability topic. We should provide information about the full flow of the information in the system. And this include where they come, the external user or the client machine to machine, all the involved workload identities, till the end below at the resources on the traffic clusters. And we need to have a path for this in order to provide information on who is the real author of the performed operation. Okay? So if I go a little down, I put this picture only for example. Someone is speaking to intervene or sorry?
Can everyone else please be on mute? Thank you.
Oh, it wasn't a problem for me. It was just that maybe it was a question and I didn't see it.
No.
Anyway,
please
okay. I put this picture that I take from a meeting, a use case architecture meeting in Nephew. And this, I put this here, just an example to show you how many access points we have in the system. Okay, potentially we have, because we go inside the system and here we have a potential authentication and access control point. And for each interface that are the external one, the internal one, but also the other external one, the one that reach the traffic cluster for the deployment of network function and so on and so forth. So I think that is a good example to push on the requirement that we have to introduce this identity and access management feature. Then this rationale, I didn't change anything with respect to the past version of this document. And we touched just a little bit the requirement. This is more or less the same as when Brian presented it, but we introduced, because we had a conversation last time about the workload identities, because okay, in this new world, we don't have just external and client user coming from outside, but we also have to control the access to every single resource. And in order to be able to control the access to these resources, we also need to identify these resources and then give them identities. And so we put also this workload identity and access control administration and configuration, because once we define them, we also need to configure, put some detail, some optionality. And so we need to configure credential management. And we put here some more generic credential management, because it's not a password as for the user or a secret or certificate as for the client. We still need to investigate a little bit, which is the best way to provide some credentials, some how to say, document that certified that that workload is exactly what it's supposed to be. And then we also need to configure some fine-grained access control configuration, because as I said at the beginning, RBAC is not enough now, because we need to go inside in the intimate of the data, because maybe is required to check and to filter the access according to a specific value of a parameter of a package that we configure with the porch. Okay. Last one, but really important. We add this requirement that is auditability, traceability, and accountability. Because as I said also in the problem statement, we need to understand who is performing connection in our system for security reason, to check for debugging, also to collect a statistic. But anyway, we need to understand all the flow of the data and who is the originator and who has the responsibility of the modification on the system. Okay, more or less. Okay, then this is just as it was last time. And we didn't change the component architecture, because we think that is better, as is a large consortium, is better that we proceed together. So every step that we go forward, we all agree on it, and we can have a solution that is fitting everyone need. Any comment, question?
Yes,
Do you
I
like
have
it?
have a question.
yes, I have a question and a comment. So basically, look, in terms of the requirements for the workload identity, these requirements are too sparse, too high level. I think usually what happens, let me explain in the context of workload identity and versus user identity. When people think about workload identity, they assume that if we can generate an access token in the context of the portal, and you use that access token for accessing the APIs, that could be considered as workload identity or client. But that is not what workload identity can be categorized as. If we imagine that new applications can be deployed across multiple edge clusters, those applications needs to attest and prove their identity so that they can have access to the resources. What are the attestation requirements? All of these things have to be considered as part of workload identity. I think towards that end, we have to ensure that workload identity requirements are clearly captured to the point where it is granular enough to be taken up from the reference implementation point. So I feel this is still sparse from the workload identity perspective. This is a good requirement from the user and client identity perspective. I can clearly see that. Yeah. Wim has a point. Next.
Sorry. Do you have okay, this is an example. Do you have a potential list of
Yes.
okay.
I think that would be required. I think that would be
Okay,
required.
if you can share,
Yes.
I can put it and I integrate your comment in the document, if you agree.
Yeah. So right now I don't have it, but in the sense that but till the next meeting, I intend to prepare as to what the
Okay,
expectation would be, and then share
okay,
it with you.
perfect. Because this list now is so short, because for me is we are at the beginning on
Sure.
this. Okay, but
Fine.
you're right. For sure, we have to.
Super.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. No, see, I think this is a very good baseline, right? So now my main question that I have is the following: is that in my view, nothing is unique to Nefio here, right? So let's say if we move forward here, is it basically collecting? Is it about putting the right components together and following a best practices that we are aiming for to accomplish? Or do we believe that there are missing components that are not available in our ecosystem today that needs to be added to accomplish this?
Okay, what I have in mind is that, as I put also in the point 2, I think, okay, not everything that is here could be really a new module, a new service inside the Nephew. Because, for example, the EAM that the customer use are their own. This is already true now, okay? So for sure, they are outside. And for that, we need anyway to address the impact that we have as an Nephew system, because we need to define the requirement on the interface toward this external system. And this is a first point. Instead, for let me say, I'm not really sure, but my idea for the management cluster, the cluster where we really deploy the Nephew system, Porch, and everything together, I think that in this case, the EAM service set of services could be also internal to Nephew, but maybe configurable, because we cannot oblige, we cannot put this as a constraint to everyone that want to use the Nephew system. So it makes sense to me that is internal, but optional. Meaning that if someone wanted to use another one that is external, it could.
Hendrik, can I ask a question? So before you, do you see any Nephew specific identity access management? You think typically if you're using the IDAM and then other IDP and then service mesh, those things is pretty generic. So do you, if you see any Nephew specific the list, then you are helpful for us to narrow down.
Okay.
Do you see any?
Yeah, that's a similar question than me. So in other words, so I think Bin-Young has the same similar question than me, right? So if I look to this, what you have here, it's a fairly, let's say, a fairly generic set of capabilities that are not necessarily specific to Nephew.
Right.
Do you agree with that? Right. So
yes.
So if that's the case, that means that we basically are collecting pieces, or we are putting together a reference implementation based on components that somewhere are available for us. And so what we want to do is, so for example, I think there is one issue in Porch, by the way, that which is related to this this domain, is that today, okay, he is the only one who has access to Git, but there is no trail of the actual component that actually updated the packages. So everything is Porch, which is not so good, I think.
Okay.
So you don't...
a decomposition, you mean? We miss a decomposition. We just call the entire bubble.
Yeah, so for example, I mean, everything that Porch does is based on Porch, right? So the identity system inside of Porch is not really existing. But for me, this is a specific issue for Porch as such, right? If I go wider to the workload cluster and stuff like that, you would use an identity system that is available onto the market. You make sure that we follow the best practices, we add that to the component, and as a result, we achieve that. Whether we, in our reference implementation or labs, use an internal or external identity system shouldn't really matter, right? Because the customer will customize
I
it based on
totally
their
agree.
environment. Yeah.
I totally agree. I mean, when I say it's optional, I mean that we can provide, okay, a reference architecture, as you said, and maybe that for test purpose or to have a fast setup and deployment, we can propose to use Keycloak as internal one, but the typical use case will be having an external one. And again, I have
Sure.
me too the question that also last time I tried to put here. Maybe it wasn't so clear. I'm not sure because now, Nephew, as you said, there is porch. I don't know if we have also on top of the workload identities also some other user, meaning that they are not the one that propose modification on porch package, but something else, some administration task to do that is not involving specifically this life cycle of packages. And no one answered, or maybe I didn't understand it. Which opinion you have about different user coming from the external outside that are not addressing porch packages? There is something like this in Nephew?
Yeah, so okay, so for us, we mainly use ports as our, let's say, or to actually fan out certain configuration artifacts, right? Now, nothing prevents you from a human adding a manifest into a package and into a Git repo that is basically consumed directly by config sync. That is possible. We are not preventing that, if you see what I mean.
Okay.
Now, we are not messaging or focused on that right now, right? Because we are mainly focused on making that pipeline work at the moment. But nothing prevents you, if you deploy, let's say, a Nephew-like system, to go and do that without porch, that whole pipeline, right?
Yeah,
so you could...
I mean, yes, my idea, it wasn't just without porch, but just as not as an alternative.
Also complementing porch.
But exactly.
Complementing, yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, correct. So that's possible, right? So you have humans that can go straight into the Git repo and manipulate the data themselves. That's possible.
Okay, and this for me is an important reason to promote this IAM feature. That is, as we agree, I think the major part of the case is external, but maybe also internal.
Yeah. That's
good. Yeah. For for reference implementation, after we agree with the problem statement, this is my personal view, and then requirement. This is the baseline requirement. Then for reference implementation for R3, maybe we need to have some kind of user story, like for example, admin user, need to access securely to the item, and then also security connecting to porch, and then also one of the picture described there's approval. Anybody try to change the hydrate package, and they need to, when they merging into porch, they need to approval. You can do it or not. That's one of the example of role base or some attribute where you can change what you can change, merging into porch and then moving into config sync. So that kind of was some more detail for reference implementation. The team maybe needed. That's my
now,
question.
Bijong, if you ask me, I mean, what is our biggest challenge?
What's the biggest challenge?
Yeah. So for me, the biggest challenge we have right now, from my perspective, is we need to resolve which started as a secret management discussion, is the identity and security, if you will, between the workload and the management server, right? So at the moment, we have a one-way street, right? So we have a street from let's say, the management cluster to the workload cluster. But we are talking about observability and talking about service assurance, and we want to get feedback from the workload cluster to the management cluster. We need to address that ASAP, in my view. And for me, doing that with the full security in mind, I would prefer to focus on that side, because that's a gap we have. And if we, so right now, what we, for example, did or are doing is we use a cluster admin secret to do it. And I think we should avoid doing that and come up with a better framework around that. And then we can adopt all the frameworks that need that communication using that system. So that baseline, that would be my preference. And as such, you would do some workload identity. They might not be the network function workload, but it's actually the controllers that lives in those entities need to be having an identity and needs to be having the right access rights to be able to access certain resources and stuff like that. So if I would vote on that topic first, rather than peeling into configs, because then you have like a territory that we have to fix, and that there we have a hole with, and I think that's always a good thing to focus on such a space. But that would be my 2 cents.
Okay, and for this, a possible solution to investigate could be a federation between the AAM that we have on top and the AAM that is already the basis for the traffic cluster, because as we said in advance, maybe the customer already has its own, so we cannot just put some how to say external IDP and centralized the control of the identity in our own local or external. So we cannot use just one token, but we need to federate more than one AAM. Because okay, the constraint is that something is already there, and we can remove it. We cannot remove it. Okay, sorry, there was someone that wanted to speak and that I didn't see. Sorry, I didn't want to. Over.
Okay, I think I'll have to cut the line here, but I think one particular use case that Wim brought to the front is about the specific secrets that we are currently creating in the management clusters, which are needed for, and the access is needed by the worker cluster. So Wim, while we were talking, I just created this sample diagram. Does it actually make sense as to what the requirement is? So we have Git here, which
can you share?
Am I sharing? Do you see my screen?
Not yet.
No.
Okay, that's weird.
Yes, now.
Now we can see.
Yeah.
Can you see the screen, Will?
Yes, we can see that.
Yeah. Okay. So the specific requirement here is that in the management cluster, we have Git, which is actually pushing the secret. Ideally, eventually, the secret has to be pushed into secrets manager, and the worker clusters need access to that particular secret, and it should be read access to, right? Like, and so the question is,
but that's purely. So this is purely secrets to access Git, right? But going forward, right? Actually, what we want, for example, I look at the use case that we reviewed on Friday, right? There was a use case, for example, for from ORAN, right? They are deploying network functions, right? But they want to get feedback of the success or the failure or the status of that network function. So it's not purely to Git, but it's also, for example, we need to. So there will be components in the network, in the workload clusters, like the one you drew. Right. And they need to report information, or the management cluster needs to fetch the data, and they need to do that in a secure way. So the communication that I'm talking about is both ways. It's either from the workload cluster, but also management cluster to the workload cluster, and doing that with the right identity as well as with the right access controls to control that communication.
Question: when you say something more than Git, You are mentioning a lot of things, but it seems that everything is access to the API server on the workload cluster. API server is enough.
Yeah. So correct. So okay. So this is another discussion. We're going to the details. But
I think
yes,
we're going to the
but
details.
it's actually not bad, I think, right? So okay. So option one is indeed API server, right? And I would prefer that. But what you see is that, for example, when you look at the Edge Watcher that Google did, it was a gRPC endpoint, right? So they basically spinned out their own gRPC endpoint. And as a result, you have to deal with all the access, identity, RPAC, and stuff like that for a new communication channel. So I would promote to start with the API server and focus on the API server only. And if we really need to add additional endpoints, we can consider that, but let's focus on the API server as the starting point. That would be my proposal.
So for the API server, more than just a secret, we need. I think that the solution could be having a token, but not the token related to the service account of Kubernetes, but a real OpenID Connect token that is released, emitted by an AIM that could be or the one of the customer, or the one that we propose as in the reference architecture. And then we use that token in order to provide the access also to this traffic cluster. In that, just summarizing, I have the action that someone from outside go to Porch and change some package, whatever, and so authenticate toward the AIM, okay, internal, external, but our own, let me say. And then using that token that has to be configured also on the cluster, on the workload cluster, you could access that workload cluster. If the workload cluster hasn't already their own AIM mechanism. If otherwise there is already a customer AIM mechanism, at that point we need to federate and our own with that one. And this is a little more complex, but I think it's possible, and we can go in this direction to investigate. I said too many things, not sure.
I think
we have to.
Is it clear? Yep.
Yeah. Let me regurgitate what Wim said. Wim, you want to, going through the API server channel to talking to, and then we want to secure API server. Okay. Then to secure API server, not just secret, but also other needed, the manual set. And then it's possible each workload center cluster, they have their own item. Then is the management cluster item or external item we may need to federate. That's I haven't done before, but little complicated, but that's the items capability. Decent item they can configure that federation. So, okay, that's my understanding, Wim. So we're going through API server.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, I'm done. I have spoken enough.
No, so this discussion is not going to end, right? So I think we need a focused discussion towards this end maybe in the coming week. But before coming to that discussion, right, we need two things. One is specific requirements from the workload identity perspective and specific use cases that we need to fulfill towards that end. So one thing is we are hoping that by the end of Feb, right, like we have a high level clarity on what the requirements that we want to take forward, and then get some acceptance or some validation from SIG Release, SIG Automation, other working groups, the other SIGs within Nephew, right? Like, because I'm worried right now that we might be thinking too much in within this group, and we might have to expose some of the points that we are discussing outside of this group. So that Without that, we cannot do the prioritization, right? Otherwise, we'll be trying to solve. We'll be chasing rainbows without making.
I agree. I agree. We need to
So
focus
Rahul,
on what.
Are you aware about the Friday meetings that are happening to scope? So we go through the user stuff. So what happens if I explain a little bit? So there is different working groups in SIG 1. Okay. Now you are, in my view, a special SIG 1 for now. Think of it like that, right?
Okay.
You're a bit, you're more than that, but just in this context, think about it like that. What they are doing is on the Friday meeting, we are trying to identify or go through the use cases that we feel ready to get to for the next release, if you will, in which case right now it's R3. Right. And then we discuss it between people from SIG 1, SIG 2, and then your SIG. And then we basically say, go for it or not, or please figure this out. But this can also be a journey, right? So you do some pieces in R3, then some pieces in R4, some pieces, or you don't do anything in R3, but you do a POC or something like that.
Right.
So all these things can be discussed, but that's the vehicle at the moment that we have in order to provide visibility to the wider things. So similar things are happening, for example, in ORAM. So there is a dedicated working group. And so then, let's say last Friday, they presented some of these use cases, and then we reviewed them. And so Bash, who is on the call, he's doing policy and service assurance, right? So he's doing the same thing. So so that's kind of the vehicle to communicate around these things. Now, in your case, I think because they are very big topics, we might just use it to, without being fully ready as a use case, at least make it visible what you're considering, right?
Yeah,
I think that's a good thing.
Correct. At a high level, we need to ensure that the approach that we are possibly thinking, might be in a step in the right direction, right? Like that, I'm just worried that right now we don't have that visibility. Anyways, thank you. Definitely helps. Thank you for letting us know about the Friday meetings. I'm hoping few of us could join that. I'll certainly look forward to joining that. Appreciate it.
The idea is if you want to be on the agenda, that a week ahead of time you put yourself into the agenda. That's
right.
Thing. Just FYI.
Yeah. I'll go through the calendar and then pop it on the SIG Security Slack as well for others to check.
Yeah.
Thank you. Subhash, are you on call? Maybe 5 minutes possible.
Rahul, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes, Subhash, we can hear you.
Yep. Sure. So actually, I would like to revisit on the package validation. That is yesterday. Let me share my screen. Yeah, let me know if it's visible.
It is visible. Yes.
Yeah. So actually, last time when we were discussing, so we had the question on this package validation. So we wanted to hook package validation in the approval controller. And whenever package is available in a proposed state, we would like to do one validation onto it based on the policy, or more specifically OPA policy, or maybe you could have some third-party policy validation also that we could have we could do it. So the question was asked actually from the Vim. Actually, we could apply the policy directly on the management cluster, and they could validate it. So because there was time constraint, so I was not able to clarify it. What happens actually when we prepare the package? The package contains all the KRMs, right? And we would like to, and also we would like to have the packages a best secured one, or best having the best practices. This KRMs is not applied on the management cluster. So the policy which we are configuring on the management cluster will not get any notification on its creation or its modification or deletion. Nothing. It will receive it. So what exactly we can do it? We could have a policy, a validation controller or package validation controller here, which can query all the packages. Those are in a proposed state, and they are in the position that it is getting promoted from the proposed. They are in the they are transitioning from the proposed to approved state. So at this time, actually, we can tap on those packages, and we can validate against our policies. So that is the one point. Like this, just to understand once again, the KRMs are not applied in the management cluster. So the policy configured on the management cluster cannot validate it. So we have to explicitly run those policies on those packages to validate it. That is the one point. And second point, what I wanted to brought in this framework, there are multiple workload cluster, right? So we would be having different policies related to different workload cluster. Like some workload cluster owner, they say that I can have certain policies. I would not allow certain IPs, or I would not allow certain VLANs. So based on that workload cluster, also we could have the policy, and we can validate the package against the policy which are targeted for the specific workload. Because packages are again having a one resource related to the workload, right? So that workload resource, we can actually match it, and we can fetch the policies related to that workload cluster, and that will help us to validate against those kind of policies. So this two distinguishing feature would be provided by this package validation framework. So that I was proposing that this user stories actually can help us on the package validation before we deploy the package in the workload cluster. So any questions actually, Rahul or Wim? Hello?
No, so yeah, Wim, I don't have any specific questions. So basically, I was going to ask for review to the wider channel here. Wim, you seem to be muted. Any specific points?
Yeah, I think so. First, I think your use case with IP address are not really security related things. It's my comment. So that's one, right? So, what I was trying to say, I think last time was that. So there is multiple ways you can do this, right? So you can do this either as part of the approval controller, right? In which case, he is. He's doing that as part of the approval process, right? Through the system, right? Which is basically one of the ideas that we had right now. The other one is that you basically decouple it, and that you build your own independent thing before the approval thing happens, right? Now, my comment is this, Subash, is that we need to re-architect this whole part in Porch, independent of this use case, which makes your use case a little bit a challenge, given the refactoring we have to do inside of Porch. Because you see right now, it takes a long time before something gets approved and stuff like that, and it's because the whole way this is done is very fragile. And so I think we have to do that first before tackling other capabilities, because the system at the moment is way too fragile to add something, and you see that there is loops, sometimes approval don't happen. So that's something we have to tackle first before we go to the next stage.
Sorry, Vibha, I missed some last few points, but actually I was thinking let's start with this first step, and once we re-architect the Porch, at that time we'll try to again adjust policies. The basic idea of this framework, it will be working around the policies, right? So whenever things will change, we would be having the policy, and thing is that only we will configure those policies on the Porch. So that way, the essence of this user story will remain same: a policy-driven package validation.
Yeah, but there's nothing new with what OPA does today, right? So you could run this whole thing through OPA, and you basically put on your rules, and you're done, right?
Yeah, actually, we are doing it, but yeah, again, it's like we are configuring Nephew to have this package validation.
Yeah, well, what I'm trying to say is that because of the changes we have to do, right? What I'm trying to tell you is fixing this in the current ports is very hard.
Okay.
So my advice is not to do so and wait till we have refactored it, and then we can consider things.
Okay. But we, the thing is that means I wanted to visualize the policy, so I'm still hoping that Porsche will.
See, Subash, what I'm trying to say is that if you try to fix a broken system, right, adding more features on a broken system is not a good thing.
But yeah, how we will decide which thing actually we should, I mean, like which thing not to enhance actually, so that.
No, but Subhash, in this case, if the
what I'm basically saying, Subash, your use case remains valid. What I'm saying is, but we have to first fix the base before you can add more features to the base.
Okay.
And is that discussion happening anywhere, Wim, about
so at the moment it's a bit stalled, but we will have that soon. Once so I think release 2 is out of the door. We moved ports inside of Nepio, right? And so that's going to be the next conversation we'll have to.
Porch is formally part of Nepio now. It's been moved, transferred.
Yeah, it's part of. So if you go to Nepio project, you see ports there, right?
Yeah, but the project existed somewhere else, right? Like the upstream project.
Yeah, it was part of kept. It was part of kept, but now it's part of Porch. It's part of Nepio. Sorry.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so yeah.
Rahul, then what exactly the finally we can
conclude?
Like
if there is a prerequisite on Porch making like as Wim said, right? Like I'm not aware of the details here, so that's I cannot really comment any further. But if there is a dependency on Porch and there is an architectural dependency on Porch, then that has to be fixed before we can go ahead on this. So it would be nice if we can understand what that problem is and bring it to the table. At least it would be nice to understand what that the change that needs to be done in the Porch is fundamental. So that part I'm a little bit hazy on.
And one of the things that we are discussing, Rahul, is what do we do with Porch, which is part of this. But for example, today when we deploy the whole thing, right? I think for people who have tried it, it takes close to 45 minutes or something like that. So normally this should happen in like 10 minutes. And the reason that most of the things takes a long time is to get an approval for a package takes 2-3 minutes just for one.
Okay.
Which is not normal, right? So, and we have been trying to look at. I mean, I've looked into the details here personally of what we should change. So it's a rather drastic fix that we should do, in my view.
Okay.
But I have one general question that like currently we depend. I mean, like a Porch is the central part of Nepio. I would say it's the heart of the Nepio. So should we stop development in another aspects just because there is a change in the Porch? Do you think is the
so see, we are not, so for example, we can do, so there is a number of things that we can do which are not depending on it, right? So at the moment we have a certain system, like for example, if you look to all the use cases that we have for ORAM, they use the system as is. They are not trying to extend it, right? So that's fine. There's nothing to change because for them, they will not see a change, basically, right? It's not because here what you're trying to do, you're trying to add on something that we have to fix, and that's the problem.
Okay.
And it would have implications, right? So Shubhas, the point is that it might have implications once it is fixed. Redoing it again, and there's no point. So okay, first let's understand what the point is, what the change would require. I'm not sure if that is something that is targeted towards R3 release or or what it is.
It's not to do the refactoring. You cannot even do it in an R3 release, Rahul, if you're right. So this will be. So I think this has to be discussed, right? But for me, there is some, let's say, rework required, and yeah, given this is a huge task, it's not going to happen in R3. It's impossible.
Okay, I see. Okay.
So Wim, I would suggest let's move forward with this user story, and let's try to build on it. And we will identify what are the things need refactoring, and that we will absorb while we will discuss in R4 around the porch. So that time we will absorb it. Do you think is the right approach?
So Shubhash, the point is, from the prioritization perspective, right? Like, is this a problem? Like, is this a burning issue that has to be fixed? There are other hurdles as well that, so I think we look, eventually when we take it back to the wider NEFIC community, we're going to hear similar thoughts. Like, do we want to, I mean, certainly if you want to continue on this path, make sure that the requirements are in place and those get reviewed. We might we might want to do the review part, getting handled as part of this thing. But like, if it depends critically on a specific system which this particular SIG doesn't have any control over, then it becomes untenable, right? Like it becomes untenable to make sure that we get this thing executed in this particular SIG without the prerequisite handle. So there are some limitations. There are some fundamental limitations here. Now, as a group, we need to understand maybe first what that porch problem is, that clearly Wim knows better. And if the point is that it might not even get fixed in R3, then that's a serious concern. Right? That's a serious concern, whether we'll be able to fulfill this. And if we are not able to fulfill this user story without that particular prerequisite being done, then what's the point in, because things change, things would change in the next 6 months, right? Like,
but Rahul, I would say that might affect multiple things, right? So does it mean we'll stop working on all the other user stories?
All the other user stories do not have impact on this, right? Yeah.
No, so this only impacts user story that wants to extend the system that is affected, right? So here you're basically changing a core of something that is, let's say, broken is maybe too hard of a word, but it's too fragile. So if you build on something that is not robust enough, you are going to break it more. That's not a good thing, right? So there is many use cases that have not. Most of the use cases don't have this dependency, if I'm honest.
Okay.
This one does have.
Okay, folks, since we have 3 more minutes, I would like to make sure that we have an open floor for at least 2 more minutes. Anything else that anyone wants to bring it to the fore right now? Okay, I don't hear anything. I know that we weren't able to discuss a few of the other action items, but that should be fine. We can get back on Slack for those discussions. 30 more seconds. Anyone else wants to say anything in the context of what we discussed today, or anything in general? Now is the time. Going once, twice, thrice. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day, good week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.